The sanctuary's secret, the morning mist, clung to the valleys of Kepler 442b like ghostly fingers, shrouding the human settlement of Haven's Rest in ethereal silence. Captain Zara Blackstone stood at the observation deck of the medical facility, watching the sunrise paint the alien landscape in shades of amber and gold. 3 years had passed since the evacuation fleet arrived at this distant world, carrying the survivors of Earth's final war. Behind her, the soft hum of medical equipment provided a constant reminder of their most precious cargo, the children's. Ward housed 47 young survivors, ranging from infants to teenagers, all bearing the genetic modifications that made them immune to the void plague that had consumed their homeworld. These children represented humanity's future, their DNA carrying the keys to rebuilding their species among the stars. "Captain, we have movement on the perimeter sensors," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb, his voice tense as he entered the observation room. The former Earth Defense Corps officer had lost his own family to the plague, dedicating himself entirely to protecting what remained of humanity's next generation. Zara turned from the window, her weathered face reflecting years of impossible decisions. At 52, she had commanded evacuation ships, fought desperate rear-guard actions, and made the choice to abandon Earth when all hope was lost. Now she faced a new kind of responsibility, guardian to children who would never see their birth world. "What kind of movement?" she asked, following Marcus to the command center. The facility's main screen displayed a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding terrain, with pulsing red dots indicating the sensor contacts. Large metallic signatures, Marcus explained, manipulating the display to zoom in on the approaching contacts. Moving in formation, estimated arrival in 6 hours. A configuration matches no known human vessels, but the energy signatures ... double quotes. He paused, checking his readings again. They're using quantum drives, advanced technology. Through the facilities corridors, the news spread quickly among the adult survivors. Dr. Benjamin Torres, the chief medical officer, worked frantically to prepare the children for potential evacuation. His hands shook slightly as he checked the portable life support systems. 3 years of relative peace had not erased the memories of their desperate flight from Earth. In the engineering section, Chief Technician Rachel Kim worked alongside her team to power up the settlement's defensive systems. The weapons were cobbled together from salvaged military equipment and mining tools, never intended to face a real threat. They had built Haven's Rest as a sanctuary, not a fortress. "The quantum signatures are getting stronger," reported Communications Officer David Park from his monitoring station. "I'm detecting at least 12 large vessels, possibly more. They're maintaining radio silence, but their approach vector is too precise to be coincidental." Zara studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The quantum drive technology suggested an advanced civilization, potentially hostile. After humanity's experiences with the corporate wars that had preceded the plague, trust came hard to the survivors of Haven's Rest. "Begin implementing the Guardian Protocol," she ordered quietly. The protocol had been developed during their journey to Kepler 442b, a desperate contingency plan designed to protect the children if their sanctuary was ever discovered by hostile forces. The protocol was simple in concept, but devastating in implementation. If Haven's Rest faced overwhelming force, the adult survivors would engage in a fighting withdrawal, drawing attackers away from the children, while a small group escaped with the young ones through the mountain passes to a hidden backup facility. As the hours passed, tension filled the settlement like a suffocating blanket. Parents said quiet goodbyes to their children, not knowing if they would survive what was coming. The older children, those who remembered Earth's final days, understood the gravity of the situation with a maturity that broke their guardians' hearts. "Unknown vessels have entered our atmosphere," Marcus announced as the main screen showed sleek, crystalline ships descending through the clouds. Their design was unlike anything in human databases. Organic curves combined with geometric precision. Beautiful and alien. They're landing in the Northern Valley, David reported. All vessels are setting down simultaneously. No weapons fire, no aggressive posturing. They're waiting. Zara stared at the display, feeling the weight of 47 young lives pressing down on her shoulders. The Guardian protocol stood ready for activation, but something about the aliens' behavior gave her pause. They had come in force, but they weren't attacking. Open a channel, she decided. Let's see what they want. First contact's price. The main communications array crackled to life as Zara activated the broad-spectrum transmission system. Haven's Rest had never needed to communicate with aliens before, and the technology felt crude compared to what approached. Them from the Northern Valley. This is Captain Zara Blackstone of the human settlement Haven's Rest. She broadcast, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her chest. You have entered our territorial space. State your intentions. The response came immediately, but not through their communication system. Instead, a melodic voice seemed to emanate from the very air around them, speaking in perfect standard English with an accent that sounded almost musical. Greetings, Captain Blackstone. I am designated Speaker Veltar of the Ethereal Collective. We have traveled far to reach your sanctuary, drawn by the unique genetic signatures we detected from your young ones. The words sent ice through Zara's veins. These aliens knew about the children's modifications. Somehow, across the vast distances of space, they had detected what made humanity's survivors special. Our intentions are peaceful, Veltar continued, the disembodied voice carrying an almost hypnotic quality. The genetic modifications your offspring possess are fascinating to us. We wish to study them, to understand how your species achieved such remarkable adaptation to plague resistance. Dr. Torres burst into the command center, his face pale with terror. Captain, they're not just talking about study. I've been analyzing their transmission frequencies. There are neural resonance patterns embedded in their communication. They're trying to scan our minds while they talk. Marcus immediately moved to the weapons console. Captain, recommend we activate all defensive systems immediately. This has the hallmarks of a harvesting operation. Zara nodded grimly. Throughout the galaxy, stories persisted of advanced species that collected genetic material from younger. Civilizations often leaving nothing behind but empty worlds. Humanity had fled Earth to escape extinction, only to potentially face a different kind of annihilation. Speaker Veltar, Zara responded, her voice taking on the steel of command authority. Your methods of communication are invasive and unwelcome. We reject any study of our people. Depart our system immediately. The response came with a subtle shift in tone, the musical quality becoming slightly discordant. Captain Blackstone, I fear you misunderstand the nature of our request. The Ethereal Collective does not make requests. We make observations of interesting phenomena. Your children's adaptations represent a quantum leap in biological engineering. That could benefit countless species, including yourselves, Marcus muttered, his hands moving across the defensive controls. The children are not available for study, Zara stated firmly. This is our final warning. Leave our system or face the consequences. Laughter echoed through the command center, a sound like crystal chimes that somehow conveyed deep condescension. Captain, your settlement possesses mining equipment and basic defensive installations. Our collective operates technology that transcends your current understanding of physics. Please do not make this more difficult than necessary. The transmission ended, and immediately the facility's sensors detected movement from the alien landing. Sight. 12 crystalline vessels rose from the Northern Valley, their forms shifting and flowing like living things made of light and metal. All defensive positions, prepare for engagement, Zara ordered, activating the settlement-wide alert system. Implement Guardian Protocol immediately. All non-essential personnel to evacuation stations. The children's ward erupted and controlled. Chaos as Dr. Torres and his medical team began moving the young ones to the underground transport system. 17-year-old Jessica Flynn, the oldest of the survivors, helped carry the smaller children while trying to keep them calm. "Where are we going?" asked 8-year-old Tommy Chun, his genetically enhanced immune system making him valuable. "Beyond measure to the approaching aliens." "Somewhere safe," Jessica replied, though her own voice trembled with uncertainty. She had been 13 when Earth fell, old enough to remember the horrors of the plague wars and the desperate evacuation. Now she faced a different kind of nightmare not above ground. The settlement's defensive grid came online. Particle beam cannons salvaged from military transports swiveled to track the approaching alien vessels, while electromagnetic pulse mines armed themselves along the perimeter. It was pitiful compared to what approached them, but it was all they had. "First vessel is descending toward the medical facility," Marcus reported. "They're targeting the children directly." Chief Kim's voice crackled over the communication system from the engineering section. "Captain, I can overload the fusion reactor. Create an electromagnetic pulse that might disable their ships, but it'll destroy half the settlement." Zara watched the tactical display as the crystalline vessels moved with impossible grace through Haven's Rest's defensive fire. Their weapons seemed to absorb the energy beams, converting them into brilliant displays of light that only made the ships more beautiful and terrifying. Negative on reactor overload, she decided. We need to buy time for the evacuation, not destroy ourselves. She turned to Marcus. "How long until the children reach the mountain facility?" 40 minutes if they maintain current pace. The underground transport system can only move so fast with the medical equipment they need. "Then we hold for 40 minutes, Zara stated simply. "Signal all defensive positions. We don't need to win. We just need to delay them." The first alien vessel touched down in the settlement's central plaza, its crystalline hull pulsing with internal light. As they watched through external cameras, the ship's surface became transparent, revealing tall, graceful beings that seemed to be composed of living light wrapped in gossamer-thin materials. "Beautiful," Dr. Torres whispered, then caught himself. "And absolutely terrifying." Speaker Valtar's voice filled the command center again. "Captain Blackstone, we are now within your settlement. Surrender the genetically modified children, and we will allow your adult population to continue their existence here peacefully. Resist, and we will be forced to take more direct action." Zara looked around the command center at the faces of her people, Marcus with his grim determination, Dr. Torres clutching a photo of his deceased daughter, Chief Kim monitoring the evacuation progress with steely focus. These people had already lost everything once. They would not lose the children too. "All stations," she announced over the settlement communication system. "This is Captain Blackstone. Today, we stand between innocents and those who would exploit it. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity means when we say never again. Hold the line." Part 3. The Guardians stand. The first ethereal warriors emerged from their crystalline vessel like living poetry made manifest. Their forms shifted between solid matter and pure energy, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. As they glided through Haven's Rest streets, the very air around them shimmered with an otherworldly beauty that masked deadly intent. "Defensive positions report contact," Marcus announced, his voice tight with concentration as he coordinated the settlement's response. "Weapons are having minimal effect." The beings seemed to phase through most projectiles. Captain Blackstone watched the tactical display with growing desperation. 3 years of careful planning, of building their sanctuary and protecting the children, might end in the next few minutes. But in her chest burned the fierce determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hours. "Switch to wide dispersal. Energy weapons," she ordered. "If they can phase through matter, maybe we can disrupt their energy forms." From his position at the medical facility's defensive emplacement, Security Chief Oliver Grant opened fire with a modified mining laser. The beam struck one of the approaching ethereals, causing its form to flicker and distort. For a moment, the alien warrior became fully solid, stumbling as its perfect grace was disrupted. "That's it." Grant's voice crackled over the communication system. "Energy weapons force them into solid form. They can't phase when they're disrupted." The discovery sparked new hope throughout the settlement's defenders. Maintenance Chief Rebecca Stone redirected power from the mining operation to the defensive. GRID, overcharging the energy weapons beyond their safety parameters. If they burned out the equipment, so be it. They only needed to hold long enough for the children to escape. Underground, the evacuation proceeded with desperate efficiency. Dr. Torres guided the automated transport system through the mountain tunnels, while Jessica Flynn and the older children helped care for the younger ones. The genetically modified children, who represented humanity's future, huddled together in the darkness, their enhanced immune systems useless against the current threat. "How much further?" asked 15-year-old Michael Park, carrying 3-year-old Lucy Watson, who had been crying for her adoptive parents. 10 more minutes to the backup facility," Dr. Torres replied, checking his chronometer. "Your parents are buying us time. We can't let their sacrifice be meaningless." Above ground, the battle intensified as more ethereal warriors emerged from the remaining 11 vessels. Their weapons, devices that seemed to bend reality itself, began tearing through Haven's Rest's defenses with surgical precision. But for every defensive position they eliminated, the human defenders fell back and regrouped, never allowing a clear path to the evacuation routes. Communications Officer Park had rigged his equipment to broadcast on all frequencies, hoping that, somewhere in the galaxy, other human survivors might hear their final stand. "This is Haven's Rest calling any human vessels. We are under attack by hostile aliens seeking to harvest our children. If anyone receives this transmission, know that we died protecting the innocent." Speaker Veltar's melodic voice responded to the broadcast, carrying notes of irritation for the first time. "Captain Blackstone, your resistance is admirable but futile. We have analyzed your defensive capabilities. You cannot maintain this level of opposition for more than 12 additional minutes. Then we'll make those 12 minutes count," Zara replied through gritted teeth, manually targeting a particle cannon at a group of ethereal warriors advancing on the power station. "Chief," Kim's voice echoed through the command center from her position at the reactor facility. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the alien vessels. They're preparing some kind of area effect weapon." The tactical display showed ominous energy signatures building within each of the 12 crystalline ships. Whatever they were planning, it would end the battle decisively. "All defensive positions, prepare for major assault," Marcus announced. "Unknown weapon system charging." Suddenly, young Tommy Chun's voice crackled over the emergency communication system from the underground transport. "Captain Blackstone, this is Tommy. The aliens' thoughts, I can hear them." Dr. Torres' voice joined the transmission, filled with amazement and terror. "Captain, Tommy's genetic modifications include enhanced neural pathways. He's picking up their telepathic communications." "What are they saying, Tommy?" Zara asked, her heart pounding as she realized this 8-year-old might hold the key to their survival. Tommy's voice, high and frightened but determined, came through clearly. "They're not just here for us. They've done this before to lots of other planets. They take the children and leave the adults to die slowly. But Captain ... they're scared too. Scared of what? Of something behind them. Something chasing them across space. They need our genetic immunity because something is hunting them. Something that makes the void plague look like a cold. This revelation struck the command center like a thunderbolt. The ethereal collective wasn't just harvesting genetic material. For research, they were fleeing from something even more terrifying. Tommy, can you tell what's chasing them? The boy's voice became even smaller, filled with an ancient fear that no child should carry. Darkness, Captain. Something that eats light and life and hope. They call it the Null, and it's coming to our galaxy. Speaker Veltar's voice suddenly filled the command center again, but now it carried desperation beneath its musical tones. How is the child accessing our communications? This should be impossible for your species. Zara felt a grim smile cross her face. You underestimated humanity, Speaker. We've survived extinction before. We'll survive you too. Captain, Marcus reported urgently, the evacuation transport has reached the backup facility. All children are secure. The knowledge that the children were safe unleashed something primal in the defenders of Haven's Rest. No longer fighting to delay, they now fought with the pure fury of humanity protecting its young. Energy weapons overloaded and exploded as defenders pushed them beyond all limits. Mining equipment was converted into improvised weapons. Every human in the settlement became part of a desperate, beautiful, terrible wall of defiance. Speaker Veltar, Zara announced over all frequencies, you wanted to study human adaptations. Let me show you our greatest adaptation. We never surrender when protecting innocence. A final assault began as the ethereal weapons reached full charge, but it no longer mattered. The children were safe, and humanity had shown the galaxy that some things were worth any sacrifice. The price of protection, the energy weapons of the ethereal collective, discharged simultaneously, bathing Haven's Rest in waves of crystalline light that should have ended all resistance instantly. But something unexpected happened, the weapons. Energy seemed to bend and twist around the settlement, creating a protective barrier that defied physics. What the hell? Marcus breathed, staring at his instruments in disbelief. The energy readings are impossible. It's like the weapons are being redirected. From the underground backup facility, Dr. Torres' excited voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, it's the children. Their genetic modifications are creating some kind of quantum field effect. Tommy says they're all concentrating together, trying to protect you. 47 young voices, enhanced by genetic modifications designed to resist plague, were somehow creating a defensive field that turned the aliens' own weapons against them. The beautiful crystalline ships flickered and sparked as their energy discharges reflected back at them. Speaker Veltar's voice filled the air, no longer musical, but sharp with confusion and anger. Impossible. Genetic modifications cannot affect quantum energy fields at this scale. What have you done to these children? Captain Blackstone felt a fierce pride swell in her chest. We didn't do anything to them. We gave them something better than modifications. We gave them hope, family, and the knowledge that someone would always fight for them. The reflected energy had damaged several of the ethereal vessels, forcing them to retreat to higher altitude. But Zara knew this reprieve was temporary. The aliens would adapt, find a way around the children's protective field. Dr. Torres, she called over the communication system. How long can the children maintain this effect? Unknown, Captain. Their neural patterns are synchronized in ways I've never seen. But Tommy is translating their communications. They say they won't stop until you're all safe. Security Chief Grant's voice joined the conversation from his damaged defensive position. Captain, we've got bigger problems. I'm detecting massive signatures approaching from deep space. Whatever was chasing the ethereals, it's here. The main tactical display shifted to show the outer system sensors, revealing something that defied description. It wasn't a ship or fleet, but rather an absence of space itself, a growing void that consumed light and matter as it approached. Kepler 442b. The null, whispered Communications Officer Park, having heard Tommy's earlier transmission. The thing they were running from. Speaker Veltar's voice returned, but now carried notes of terror that transcended species barriers. Captain Blackstone, new circumstances require immediate cooperation. The null has found us. Your children's genetic immunity may be the only defense against what approaches. You mean the children you wanted to harvest? Zara replied coldly. The innocents you were willing to kidnap and experiment on? The situation has changed, Veltar insisted, the musical quality of the alien's voice replaced by desperate urgency. The null consumes life force itself. Your children's modifications create resistance we have never encountered. Combined with our technology, they might be able to create a barrier strong enough to protect this world. Chief Kim's voice echoed from the engineering section, where she was monitoring the approaching anomaly. Captain, whatever that thing is, it's accelerating. Estimated arrival at planetary orbit in 3 hours. Zara stared at the display, showing the growing void in space. Everything she had fought for, the children's safety, humanity's future. The sanctuary they had built faced extinction from a threat beyond imagination. Dr. Torres, what's Tommy saying about the children's condition? They're tired, Captain, but determined. He says they can feel the darkness coming, and they want to fight it. But they're asking for something. What do they want? They want their families with them. All of them. They say they can't protect everyone if they're separated. The request cut through Zara like a blade, bringing the adults to the backup facility. Would expose the children to potential capture by the ethereals, but keeping them separated might doom both groups to the approaching null. Speaker Veltar, she called out, if we cooperate, what guarantees do we have that you won't simply take the children once the threat is past? You have my word as designated speaker. Not good enough. We've seen how your people treat other species. A long pause filled the air before Veltar responded. Then you have our biological imperative. The null has consumed 17 worlds in our path of retreat. Without your children's resistance, we face extinction along with every other life form in this galaxy. We literally cannot afford to betray you. Marcus looked up at Zara from his tactical station. Captain, the math is brutal. Without some kind of cooperation, none of us survived the next 4 hours. The weight of decision pressed down on Zara's shoulders like a physical force. She had sworn to protect the children above all else, but protection might now require the greatest risk of all, trusting their enemies. All right, she decided, but we do this on human terms. The children remain under our protection at all times. Any attempt to separate them from their families, and the cooperation ends immediately. Agreed, Veltar replied quickly. We will provide transportation to bring your people to the children's location. Combined human determination and ethereal technology may be sufficient to create a barrier the null cannot breach. As the crystalline vessels descended to begin the emergency evacuation, Zara felt the familiar weight of impossible choices. She had led humanity's survivors across space to find safety, only to discover that true safety might never exist. But she had also learned something else. The humans and their protective instincts could create miracles when faced with impossible odds. All personnel, prepare for emergency evacuation to backup facility, she announced over the settlement communication. System, we're going to show the galaxy what humanity fights for. The crystalline ships landed throughout Haven's Rest, their alien occupants moving with newfound respect as they assisted the human evacuation. But even as cooperation began, the void in space continued to grow, consuming the light of distant Stars had approached their last sanctuary. When light conquers darkness, the backup facility deep within, Kepler 442b's mountain range, had never been designed to house both species. Ethereal beings of living light mingled with determined humans in caverns carved from living rock, while 47 genetically modified children sat in a circle at the chamber's center, their hands joined as they maintained the quantum field. That kept everyone alive. Captain Zara Blackstone stood beside Speaker Veltar, both leaders watching their respective people work frantically to construct a defense against the approaching null. The alien's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy while human engineers welded ethereal technology into configurations that defied both species' understanding of physics. "The quantum resonance is holding," reported Dr. Torres, monitoring the children's vital signs with equipment that combined human medical technology and ethereal energy manipulation. "But Tommy says they can feel the darkness getting stronger. It's like ice in their minds." 8-year-old Tommy Chun had become the unofficial translator between the children's collective consciousness and the adult world. His enhanced neural pathways allowed him to communicate the shared thoughts and sensations of all 47 young survivors. "The null feeds on life force," Veltar explained, manipulating a holographic display that showed the approaching void. "It converts biological energy into pure entropy. Your children's genetic modifications create interference patterns that disrupt this process." "Like static blocking a radio signal," Chief Kim suggested, her hands flying over the combined control systems they had built. The former mining engineer had adapted to alien technology with the desperate creativity that defined humanity's survivors. "A crude but accurate analogy," Veltar agreed. "But the null learns and adapts. Previous encounters have shown it can overcome simple resistance within hours." Jessica Flynn, now 17 and the oldest of the children, spoke without breaking the circle they had formed. "We're not simple resistance. We're human. We're stubborn." A ripple of laughter passed through the chamber despite the approaching doom. Even the ethereal beings seemed affected by the children's determination, their crystalline forms glowing brighter in response to the young human's courage. "No breach detected at system perimeter," announced Security Chief Grant from his monitoring station. "It's consuming the outer planets. Complete matter conversion to entropy." The main display showed the horror approaching them, entire worlds simply ceasing to exist as the void passed over them. Not destroyed or conquered, but erased from reality itself, leaving nothing but empty space where solar systems had once flourished. "How long?" Zara asked quietly. 2 hours to planetary orbit," Grant replied. "But Captain, the children's field effect is growing stronger. The quantum interference is expanding beyond the mountain." Young Michael Park, 15 years old, and one of the technical prodigies among the survivors, looked up from his connection to the other children. "We can feel it now. The thing that's coming. It's hungry and cold, and so lonely." "Lonely?" Veltar's form flickered with confusion. "The null is not a living entity. It cannot experience emotional states." "It used to be alive," Tommy said, his voice carrying a wisdom no 8-year-old should possess. "A long time ago, before it became dark. It's trying to make everything else as empty as it feels." The revelation struck both species with stunning impact. The cosmic horror approaching them had once been something else, something that had lost everything and chosen to make the universe share its emptiness. "If it was once alive," Dr. Torres said slowly, "then maybe it can remember what it was like to be alive again." "Impossible," Veltar stated firmly. "The null has consumed 17 worlds. It cannot be reasoned with or redeemed." "You don't know humanity very well," Zara replied grimly. "We specialize in impossible things." "Tommy, can the children reach out to this thing? Try to make contact?" The boy's face scrunched up in concentration as he communicated with the other children through their quantum connection. They say yes, but it's dangerous. If we touch its mind, it might pull us into the darkness too. I won't ask children to take that risk, Zara stated firmly. You're not asking, Jessica Flynn replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had grown up too fast in a universe that showed no mercy to innocence. We're volunteering. This is our future too. Around the circle, 47 young faces turned toward the adults with expressions of determination that transcended their years. These children had been born into war, modified to survive plague, and raised by people who had already lost everything once. They understood sacrifice. The quantum field is stabilizing at maximum resonance, Chief Kim reported. Whatever they're planning to do, they need to do it now. The null has reached the inner system. The children's joined hands began to glow. With soft blue light, their genetic modifications creating visible energy patterns that spread throughout the chamber. Both human and ethereal equipment registered impossible readings as 47 young minds reached across space toward the approaching void. Contact established, Tommy whispered, tears streaming down his face. It's so sad. It lost everyone. It loved, and now it wants to make the pain stop by making everything stop. The chamber filled with a presence that was vast, ancient, and utterly alone. Through the children's connection, every person in the facility could feel the null's anguish, the memory of a species they had once loved and laughed and dreamed, now reduced to consuming emptiness. We know what it's like to lose everything. Jessica spoke directly to the presence, her 17-year-old voice carrying the weight of humanity's own losses. We lost our world, our families, most of our people. But we didn't let the loss make us empty. We chose to protect what remained. The presence paused in its approach, perhaps feeling something it hadn't experienced in eons, understanding. You can choose differently, young Michael added. You can remember what it felt like to create instead of destroy, to protect instead of consume. Through their quantum connection, the children began sharing something unprecedented, their memories of love, hope, and the fierce determination of the adults who had protected them. They showed the null what humanity meant when they chose to guard innocence against impossible odds. The void in space shuddered, its perfect emptiness developing flaws as ancient memories stirred within its cosmic consciousness. For the first time in millennia, the null hesitated. It's working, breathed Dr. Torres, watching the readings on his instruments. The entropy field is destabilizing. Speaker Veltar's crystalline form blazed with amazement. Impossible. The null is beginning to reconstitute matter. It's reversing its own entropy conversion. On the main display, the consumed worlds began to reappear, not as they had been, but as new possibilities, fresh chances for life to flourish. The null was not just stopping its consumption, but undoing the damage it had wrought. Tommy looked up at Captain Blackstone with eyes that sparkled with tears and triumph. It remembers now. It remembers what it was like to be part of something beautiful instead of being alone. The presence in the chamber began to fade, not disappearing but transforming. Where once there had been hungry emptiness, now there was something else. Purpose, hope, and the determination to heal what had been broken. Thank you, a voice whispered. Through the quantum connection, no longer the cold hunger of the null, but the grateful song of a species reborn from its own darkness. We had forgotten that even in loss, there can still be love. As the cosmic entity departed to begin the work of restoration, Captain Zara Blackstone looked around the chamber at the faces of her people, human and ethereal alike, adults and final. Children, all united by the simple truth that some things were worth protecting at any cost. Well, she said finally, I think we've earned our place in this galaxy. The children's laughter filled the chamber, bright and warm and entirely human, echoing through the mountain depths like a promise that no matter how dark the universe became, there would always be light to drive the shadows away.